Hi, this is Len Edgerly. Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles podcast. Today is June 18th, 2020, and I am recording the episode at Ocean Park, Maine, looking out at the ocean here toward the end of the day. What time is it? Well, of course, these are long days, 7:12, and there's still plenty of light out there. And it was a great summer day here. We finally got into some warm weather. And the cottage we're staying in is not air conditioned, so I'm having a chance to really experience the heat up here on the second floor as I talk to you. This episode, you're going to hear the voices of my two youngest grandsons, Jake and Ryan, who are 6 and 4 years old. They were here for 3 days this week, what we call Grandpa and D Camp. They call Darlene D. And we had all kinds of activity. I bought a robot from a company called Wonder Workshop at Amazon to do some programming. They brought some very complicated Lego sets, and you'll hear more about that. As I reflected on it and what I wanted to bring to this episode of the podcast, I was so aware of how they're learning all the time at that age. At any age, we're all learning. But I was curious to see if I could learn some tips about learning by talking to my grandson. So you're going to hear the interviews, and then I'm going to share with you 12 things that I learned about learning from my grandsons. I'll start out sharing 3 news stories with you, one about an Amazon summer sale that might be coming up, and open source sharing of a quite innovative aspect of Amazon's protection of employees from coronavirus at their warehouses, and then some thoughts on the Economist cover story about Amazon, which just came out today. Well, the first news story, I think we've all known that there will not be a Prime Day in July, as has been the case, one of the big sales events for Amazon each year. Latest is that it might be held in September. I've seen that mentioned a couple of places. That's Sophie barking at neighbors out front. What I have seen a couple of weeks ago, several outlets carried news that Amazon is going to be holding a summer sale on June 22nd. That would be Monday coming up. And I haven't seen anything specific from Amazon, which seems odd because if they're really going to hold a big one-day sale, you'd think they would be touting it in advance. But maybe it's just going to be some deals that show up on that day without having a whole bunch of advance hoopla about it. I thought I had seen indications of low prices on Kindles and Fire tablets, and maybe that's a different kind of a promotion. But, I'm sure that as Amazon starts getting its warehouses back to something like normal, they're going to be having sales, and so you just need to kind of keep an eye open. If there's something that you're hoping to buy from an Instant Pot to a Fire to a Kindle, there's going to be opportunities, I'm sure, possibly as soon as Monday and then afterward. A second news story which caught my eye this week came from the Day One blog. That's Amazon's blog. And it's that the company is going to open source a social distancing tool that it has developed. And there's a video of it. I'll have a link to this in the show notes. It's essentially in a place at one of their warehouses where there's a lot of traffic, like an intersection where lots of people are moving around. And having seen the Fall River, Massachusetts warehouse, I can picture where those places are. This is a standalone unit that has a 50-inch TV monitor, and then it has there's some computer capability, and it just plugs into a regular outlet. And as people are approaching it, it's kind of like if you're on the highway and there's construction, they'll flash at you what your speed is. Well, this is a little more sophisticated, and it includes machine learning and augmented reality, so that each person, as they approach this area that's monitored by the device, has a circle around them. And if you are more than 6 feet away from everybody, your circle is green. If you are closer than 6 feet with another person, both of you will have a red circle around you. So it's really just kind of a mindfulness device, because you're not getting zapped or anything if you're in the wrong place. But as you approach part of the warehouse, warehouse where you could conceivably be too close to another employee, you're going to see this big monitor of yourself and the other people, and you're going to either have a red circle around you or a green circle around you. This was written by Brad Porter, who's vice president, who leads the robotics initiatives, it says. And it says that they've been testing this. They've gotten good positive feedback from employees, and they plan to open source the software and the artificial intelligence aspects of it so that other companies can use it in different situations. There had been talk about, well, what is Amazon going to be spending $4 billion on this quarter in order to make its employees safe in the warehouses? And this is a tangible example, and it's one that I could instantly understand the value of and also admire the innovation of it. So bravo for the new social distancing tool and for the company's desire to share it. I'd like to turn now to the cover story in this week's edition of The Economist. That's a magazine that I subscribe to, and I just love the way it's written. And I also love the headlines. They have the cheekiest, most interesting headlines of any magazine that I read regularly. And they also have a lot of fun with their covers. And the cover of this latest issue that came out today is a drawing of Jeff Bezos. And it's not sort of an intimidating drawing. It's sort of playful, but in the place of a human smile, they have the smile that appears on all the packages that Amazon ships out. There's an Economist cover editorial where they simply sort of say what they think about the company and what it's doing well and what it's doing poorly, and then there's a more in-depth briefing inside. I'll have links to this, but I think if you're not subscribing, you won't be able to read them. But it's I'm going to read some of it and just give you a sense of it. The cover story sets the stage of Amazon's success, basically saying that in the pandemic, all of Jeff Bezos' visions of the company that you can read all the way back to the first letter to shareholders, 1997, I think, they just seem to be coming true. More people are buying online, and Amazon is ready with that. And so you'd say, well, everything is just kind of wonderful, and the stock price it set a new record, I believe, yesterday. So at that level of the founder's vision, the implementation, the remarkable story in the last couple of decades, everything just seems to be great. Then they get into what they call the puzzles, and I like how The Economist frames this. It's not kind of Amazon bashing or Amazon being recommended for sainthood. This is how they talk about it. The world's most admired business is thus left having to solve several puzzles. If Amazon raises wages to placate politicians in a populist era, it will lose its low-cost edge. If it spins off AWS, Amazon Web Services, to please regulators, the rump will be financially fragile. That's what's left after spinning off AWS, which they seem to think is a real possibility. 25 years on, Mr. Bezos' vision of a world that shops, watches, and reads online is coming true faster than ever, but the job of running Amazon has become no easier, even if it no longer involves packing boxes. That's a reference to how Jeff and his ex-wife were actually packing the boxes and driving them off to the post office and UPS in the early days. I like how The Economist is unafraid to just weigh into things that you hear over and over about a company, not just Amazon. And here's a section that sets the facts of, is it a monopoly that needs to be broken up, essentially. From his ranch in West Texas, Mr. Bezos has to wrestle with tricky problems. Start with the fraying social contract. Some common criticisms of Amazon are simply misguided. Unlike, say, Google and search, it is not a monopoly. Last year, Amazon had a 40% share of American e-commerce and 6% of all retail sales. There is little evidence that it kills jobs. Studies of the Amazon effect suggest that new warehouse and delivery jobs offset the decline in shop assistants, and the firm's minimum hourly wage of $15 in America is above the median for retail trade. In the second piece, which is the briefing, I noticed that there was speculation, which says has been going on among Seattle tech insiders for a few years, that Mr. Bezos has been preparing to give up the top job to become executive chairman. They say he has already shed some of the management burden, although in the coronavirus environment, he's apparently back to being a really hands-on CEO at this point. When they made Mr. Jassy, I forget his first name, but he's the chief executive of AWS, and at the time in 2016 when he headed that part of Amazon, which is sort of the biggest profit generator of the company, Jeff Wilke was named chief executive worldwide consumer, and this is more confirmation of what I've sensed, is that Jeff Wilke is the likely head of either the whole company or perhaps just the non-AWS part of the company if it does split up in two. And at the conclusion of that briefing piece, the Economist writes, the antitrust cudgel may in fact be an attempt to force Amazon to spruce up its labor track record. How far regulators are willing to go will depend on the public mood. Americans' reliance on the company and the goodwill it has generated with consumers may help it, says an antitrust expert close to Congress. An AWS spinoff, if it occurred, might obviate the need for drastic antitrust action. Mr. Bezos has managed to keep Amazon from aging beyond day one for longer than most companies can dream of, but not even the best magician can stop the passage of time. One day, day two will come. And Jeff has famously said that the day two is stasis and day two is basically the end of the company. And if he has anything to say about it, every day at Amazon is day one, whether it's $1 trillion company or something that he's started in his garage in Seattle. Time now for the interview. As I said, Ryan and Jake have been visiting us this week, and one of the things which I was really looking forward to, I think it's safe to say that my enthusiasm for this robot exceeded that of Jake and Ryan. Basically, we kind of ran out of time. I mean, there is a beach here, so we're spending some time on the beach, not just indoors playing with Grandpa's toys. But this is a very clever machine. It's got like 3 spheres and wheels on the bottom, and using the app on the iPhone, you can do some fairly sophisticated programming to make lights go on and to make it go on a certain path. And we did do some of that, and it was a fair amount of fun. And then the other thing that took some time and was the Lego set, which my daughter Rue bought for the 2 boys, one at different levels. So there was a fair amount of time spent on the dining room table putting together these very intricate Lego creations. For the interview, I put the Blue Yeti microphone here in a corner of my desk in the bedroom, and Ryan and Jake, I thought I wanted to interview them one at a time because when they're together, it just gets a little, there's just too much going on. So first we're going to hear from Ryan and then Jake. I was recording on the MacBook Pro, which is what I'm doing now. So as they were here, they could see the microphone and then they could see this red waveform inching across the screen. And at one point, there were some questions asked about that. Tell me your name.
Ryan.
How old are you?
4.
I'm going to ask you how you learn things.
Oh.
So remember yesterday when we were playing with Wheeler?
Yeah.
And Jake was learning how to program Wheeler to do things?
Uh-huh.
Were you learning how to do it too?
Uh-huh.
Because were you like watching how he did it so that when you're older you'll be able to do it?
Mm-hmm.
What did you learn? Is it fun?
Yeah.
What's fun about it?
That's a robot.
Yeah, and you get to tell the robot what to do.
Uh-huh.
Well, how do you...
There's a different animal sounds.
Oh, that's right. How did you make the different animal sounds?
You tapped on the animal and the minion.
Well, do you like to learn things?
Yeah.
How do you learn? What?
I'll interrupt here to say that it wasn't until today when I was editing these conversations with Ryan and Jake that I realized in Ryan's case, in this question that he's just about to ask me here, he was showing me how he learns, but I missed it because I was so focused on asking him kind of abstract questions about his learning process. So he interrupted me twice, and this is the first one in which he had kind of a poetic way of asking, what exactly is going on with this microphone?
Grandpa,
Yeah?
am I on the microphone?
Well, the microphone is listening to us. It's like it has ears and it can hear what we're saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
so is that the end of the podcast?
Not yet. We have to keep talking for a few more minutes.
Okay.
Can you tell me something that you learned yesterday? How about when we were down at the beach, what were you doing in the afternoon? Remember when I took that video of you?
Running in the water.
And what did you learn about running in the water?
Never to run so fast, then your hat would fall off.
How come you kept running in the water over and over?
Because I was trying to make my hat fall off.
Oh, that was
So I wanted my hat to fall off.
And if you didn't run fast enough, it wouldn't fall off.
Yeah.
How come when you started running, you were a little ways up the hill on the beach, and then you kept going further and further back to start your run? I noticed that. Why did you keep going further back?
So it mattered if how far you go and how fast you run. So I went down really fast.
Yeah.
The first time I went up not that high,
Yeah.
but high.
And then what about the next time? You went higher?
Yeah.
And why? What was it better to go higher?
Yeah.
What was better about going higher?
I would feel like my face would have fallen into the water.
There was a better chance you'd fall in the water if you started higher, wasn't it? It looked like when you started higher, you could run faster. Is that right? Because you just kept running faster and faster.
And I'll cut in here because this was where Ryan showed how he learns a second time, because as we were talking, he was watching this red wave on my MacBook Pro computer, recording in Logic Pro, and he said, again, his questions had to do with a fresh look at what was happening and then wanting to check it out with me.
Wombat, look like he's talking.
I know, you're looking at the Logic Pro. You see this little thing here? This shows our voices. Here,
No. That.
No, that?
Yeah.
Oh. See this little red thing here? When we make a sound, it makes a little wave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that sound wave?
It's a sound wave. How did you know that?
Because I kind of looked at it.
Oh, does
It looked like a wave and it makes sound.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called a sound wave.
Well, sure. Well, tell me this. When you're as old as Jake, like in 2 years, or maybe if you're as old as me, what are you looking forward to learning when you get older? What's going to be the best thing to learn?
To program robots by myself.
What will you program them to do?
To cook dinner for me.
Oh, what a good idea.
And to,
Maybe clean the house?
and clean my room for me. That one looks like it's talking, that.
Oh, the little green line looks like it's talking. Yeah, because it's moving when we talk. Right.
Oh.
It can hear us, yeah. Well, do you think that when you're as old as I am, there'll be lots of robots?
And new kind of technology.
What? Yeah? What's technology?
Video games.
Yeah, video games are technology. Computers.
Like Grandpa's computer.
Right.
Or I like Grandpa's microphone.
Right. How about
The Blue Yeti.
The Blue Yeti. Why is this a Blue Yeti?
The company blue and it's big like a Yeti.
That's right. Now, you learned that. I taught you that just before we started talking.
Uh-huh.
How did you learn it?
Cause you told it to me.
Oh, and I know there's one other thing that you did. You listened. You were listening when I was talking about it, and you learned it.
Uh-huh.
So are you a good listener?
Yeah.
Do you like to listen? Yeah.
Especially when it's a story.
Especially when it's a story?
Or Legos.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Or I would listen more if it was a Lego story.
Yeah, it's easy to listen when you're interested in what somebody's saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think people listen to you?
No.
No. Who listens to you?
Jake. Daddy.
Yeah.
Me.
Mommy, yeah. They're good listeners, aren't they? Yeah. How about the kids at school? Did they listen?
Yeah, and I know something fun.
What?
One time, we were making homemade plate. Oh, and I made it into big, ooey gooey blue slime.
Oh.
And then it got all around my hand, but then I washed it off.
Oh, was it easy to wash off?
Yeah.
Wow. What did it feel like?
Gum.
Gum?
And jelly and slime.
Ooh.
And bubble gum.
Well, what do you think you're going to learn today?
Some new stuff.
Yeah, what would you like to learn today?
How to find things by myself.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I lost my Lego car.
Oh, it's because you'd like to find some pieces on your Lego game, didn't you?
And I can't find Lego car.
Oh, well, maybe we can look for them when we get done with the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you like about building the Legos? What's the best thing?
That you get to play with them once you're done with them.
Oh, it's like you're building your own toy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Is Jake good at the Legos?
Yeah. He's working on a Dai-Gai car, and I'm working on the Dai-Gai mech.
Oh. Does he help you when you need help finding a piece?
Huh?
You got the hiccups.
Yeah, I got the hiccups. Is that the end of the podcast?
Almost. Well, thank you very much for helping me with the podcast. Now we got to go get Jake. Can you go downstairs and get Jake and tell him it's his turn?
It was kind of, before I thought it would be scary, but now it's fun. Hey, Jake, it's your turn to be on the podcast.
Jake is working on the Legos, and it would be very hard to get him to disengage. We'll see if this works.
I'm not sure. Grandpa?
Yeah.
Why says there's a contest?
What's a contest?
When he said, Jake, it's time for a contest.
No, he meant it's time for podcast. So come sit in the chair. The microphone's going. This is the Blue Yeti microphone. And I asked Jake some questions, and now I'm going to ask you some questions.
You mean Ryan.
Oh, you're right. I had the wrong. I get you guys confused sometimes. Okay, so I'm going to start by asking what your name is.
Jake.
And how old are you?
6.
Okay. Now, I've been watching how you learn things, like the Legos and the programming. Do you remember when we were playing with Wheeler yesterday and you were kind of learning how to do the programming?
Yes.
Had you ever done any programming before that in school?
No, I have done programming. Like I would need to get arrows, like an angry bird to the pig. It'd be like forward, turn, straight.
Oh, and you can make him actually follow those directions?
Yeah.
Wow. Do you like to learn new things?
Uh-huh.
What's fun about learning new things?
I can do more things.
Oh, that's right. What are you most looking forward to learn when you get older?
How to drive.
I figured you'd say that. What kind of car are you going to have?
No, it's going to be a truck.
Oh, it's going to be a truck.
Excavator.
Excavator?
I know a front loader ain't going to drive you to the beach and dig monstrous holes.
Oh. Well, now, when you think about learning how to drive, how do you think you'll learn how to drive?
Press all the car buttons.
Press all the car buttons? You think that's what it'll take to make it go?
Yeah.
If you were going to try to help Ryan to learn things, what would you tell him to do? Say, Ryan, if you really want to learn something...
Press all the buttons in it.
Press all the buttons and then you'll learn what they do.
Yeah.
What about listening? You have to listen to learn?
Yeah.
And
press all the buttons.
You have to listen and press all the buttons.
Yes.
Do you think you're a good listener?
Yes.
What's the most important thing about listening?
Doing listening stuff.
doing listening stuff, yeah. We did a lot of things yesterday. Was there anything new that you didn't know how to do before?
Program a robot.
Program a yoga, yeah. You want to do some more of that today?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the programming gets harder. So you think it'll be less fun if it's harder? Or
I like harder things.
Why do you like harder things?
Because it's challenging. I like challenging things.
Why do you like a challenge?
Because then I don't do it so quickly.
Oh, yeah. So you'd have more time to learn it because it's harder to learn.
Yeah.
Plus, you have something new you can do that you didn't know how to do before. Oh, how about reading? Is it hard to know what words are what words?
A little bit.
How do you, when you see a word in the book, like you were reading last night to Ryan and Dee and me, how can you tell what a word says?
And also I read that book at home before.
Oh, so you were familiar with it?
Yeah.
Well, if you were reading that book and there was a word you'd forgotten, how would you figure out how to say it?
Ask you sometimes.
Yeah?
Mom doesn't always let me ask her and tell her what the word is.
Well, and I was wondering that because sometimes when you were reading, I could tell there was a word you didn't know, and I didn't know whether it would be more helpful to you to tell you or to wait and have you kind of sound out the letters.
Mom usually tells, if it's a longer word, I would say she sometimes helps me.
Yeah.
But if it's kind of like a short word, and I ask her, does it sound exactly as it sounds?
Oh, because if it sounds like the letters, you'll be able to figure it out?
Yeah.
Oh, and so then she'll wait and let you figure it out.
Yeah.
Why is that better?
Because then I know if I sound it out, it'll be a little quicker.
Yeah, plus you learn how to sound out words, so then you can read words you don't know. What are some of your favorite books? What's the one we read last night? It was funny. It was about an animal that was sleeping all the time.
Wombat.
Oh, the Wombat Diary. That was funny. And then what was the one you were reading? It was
Pete the Cat and the Snow Day.
Now, is Pete the Cat a series, so there's lots of Pete the Cat books?
Yeah. We read all of them that my mom has.
Uh-huh. How many of them do we have here at the beach?
2.
2. Well, we could just read them, because we've got 1 or 2 more nights here before we go back to Cambridge. What's one thing you'd like to learn today?
How to sleep more like a log.
How to sleep more like a log. That's a good idea.
I'm going to paint myself brown.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And I'm going to make paper sticks so it looks like I have sticks.
Yeah, exactly. All right, go get Ryan.
Ryan, your turn again.
I thought of talking to them about learning because I saw so much of it going on yesterday with the programming and the different things you're doing, the Legos. And I was hoping that I might be able to hear some tips, and I got one there when Jake was talking about sounding out words that he can sound out and being told what bigger words are. That's a good tip.
Oh, I'm back here again.
Oh, you're here again. Have you got anything else extra to say?
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
I'm gonna paint myself brown and put popsicle stick me on me so I'll sleep like a log.
Oh, you've been talking to your brother. So then when you wake up tomorrow, you say, I slept like a tree, because a tree is a log. All right.
Bye. See you tomorrow, kindergarten.
Those were my recordings on Wednesday, and I thought that was going to be the interview for today's show. But then something happened Wednesday night, and it led me to a whole higher level of appreciation for this Lego toys. And you're going to hear Jake talk about that in a second, a bit of conversation with him. What happened was I got frustrated because they were working on the Lego, and I wasn't there with them. I was doing other things, and then Jake would say, Grandpa, can you help with this piece? And I'd be faced with this dizzying array of tiny little pieces and a very complex manual saying, put this piece here. And it just didn't seem to add up. And I think it was because he had made some mistakes in previous steps. My oldest grandson, James, happened to be by, and he helped untangle some of that. But it got a little scratchy there. It had been a long day, and I was just a little bit tired. And at the final part of the day, there was a confrontation, a very rare confrontation between me and Jake, in which he wanted to continue working on the Lego, and I think maybe with James's help. And it was bedtime. Rue had given us some instructions on when bedtime was, and it was already past. And I said, "Well, no, we can't do that." And he got very upset at me, and I had to chance quickly to decide this was not the hill I was going to die on as a grandparent at Grandpa and D camp. So he played for another half hour with the Lego, and I was kind of, fuming that bedtime was even getting later than it was supposed to be. So by the time he was asleep and I was talking to Darlene and James was still there, I said, "Oh, this Lego stuff, I'm good at a lot of things, but apparently I'm just not good at Lego." And when the kids come to Grandpa D camp, it's going to be a Lego-free zone. And, that was sort of funny to joke about. But on Thursday morning, yesterday, when I woke up, it just hit me. I said, that would be such a missed opportunity. If I let myself get caught in that frustration with Lego based on one day's experience, obviously it's something that they both love to do. So I got up at 5 a.m. yesterday and went down and calmed myself down. I might have had a cup of coffee, and I just started going through this bag of, I think it was bag 2 he was working on of each set has a varying number of bags. And James had done a lot of work on it, so I was able to finish up bag 2 by the time Jake came down, and he was delighted because this car was really taking shape, and the problems he'd had the day before had been solved by James and me, and I kind of enjoyed it, when I wasn't rushing or when you actually figure out how to make one of these little pages of instructions work, it's satisfying. And then you do the next one, and it's an iterative, very precise process, which has some benefits in developing patience. So after that, yesterday, before we headed back to Cambridge, I just asked Jake if he'd come up and talk a little bit more about the Lego experience. And I started by asking him, how does he know how to follow the instructions in the manual that comes with the sets?
Because the pieces that you need are on top of the thing you're already working on.
Uh-huh.
And if there's more than one, they'll have an X and a different number. And if it's like 1, they'll have an X and a 1 or a 2 or 3 or 4.
Oh, so if there are 2 pieces, it'll say X2?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So they show you the pieces, and then what I was having trouble with this morning is I could see the pieces, but it was a little hard to tell how to put them onto the car. I mean, how can you tell where to put them?
Sometimes when you're onto a piece and you're attaching them, they have arrows to show you where you're putting them. Like how I had the tricky part that James helped me. That piece showed it. Arrow showed where it would go.
Oh, and because I think one time I was trying to see where the arrow was putting it, and I had it like one row off, because it was a little. Do you sometimes have to put it down and then try a different space?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another trick is it's very good to bring a Lego remover.
A Lego remover? What's that?
It can remove any Lego if you put it in a wrong space.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes, especially because my fingers are bigger than yours, it's hard to pull them out.
Yeah, so Lego removers can get them out.
Do you have a Lego remover at home that you use when you're building these?
Yeah, I have probably like 10 of those.
Oh.
Especially when you're building big ones, they especially have them.
I see.
Like when I built Firstborn.
Firstborn, yeah.
Marvel Dragons, it was 7 bags. In the Dragon Hunter castle I'm building, I'm on to bag 11. And
there's 11 bags in that one?
No, 12.
Oh my God. That's like hundreds of pieces.
And I'm already on to bag 12.
Wow.
I mean 11.
Well, what do you do? Because I was worried when I was trying to find these little pieces. I couldn't find it. I thought, oh, what if this piece is gone? Do you ever just find a piece and you don't have it?
Yeah, I do a lot of time. And another thing, if there's missiles on a vehicle, they'll usually have lots of those.
Oh, because you're shooting the missiles?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. And when you shoot the missile across the room, you might lose it.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, if you were going to, like, I'm picturing a kid about your age, 6, and he's never done Legos, and you were going to say, you really need to get your parents to get you one of these because it's so fun. How would you convince him that it's really fun to do this? What's fun about it?
I would show them that how they would look, how it really changes from the first bag and when you all get all the way to the end.
Oh, yeah, because on the first bag, you can't even tell what it's going to be.
Yeah.
So there's a feeling of satisfaction when you see that your work really turns it into something amazing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like how how bag 3 I'm going to add the wheels, and usually the last bag has the wheels.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because the thing we've got now doesn't have wheels. I kind of wonder how it even goes. Well, are there times when it's frustrating and it's not fun because you can't figure it out?
I'll think of a time that happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Once when Dongren, that baby, said to me and my brother, they brought my Dragon Hunter castle, and I was only on to bag 2. And I had dropped this piece. What wasn't that important, but it would make it kind of cool.
Yeah.
And when it fell, I looked and looked down there, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, that was frustrating.
Yeah.
What did you do?
It wasn't that important, so we skipped it.
So sometimes you can make something, and even though it's missing a piece, it's still going to look pretty good.
Yeah, like the decals. Once my brother lost the decals to a car.
Oh. And the decals are kind of, because they're numbered. I put on a couple of decals this morning, and it said, here's decal 5, and this is where it goes. And you could just stick it right on.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know, like, if you're working on Legos, do you get tired and you sort of know, well, I'm not making good decisions, I should go do something else? Or how do you know when to stop?
Mostly when I get to probably like to a different bag.
Oh, because that's a good place to stop. You've used all the pieces in, say, bag 2.
No, I didn't, because remember when I told you about their spare pieces?
Yeah. Oh, so some of them won't be in it because they're spare.
Yeah.
I see. But if you used all the pieces you're supposed to use, that might be a good time to stop and take a break, because then when you come back, you start on a new bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Any other tips for kids on if they're thinking about doing Lego? What would be good for them to know?
If you don't finish your Lego and you have a guy built, I usually like to bring it up to my room and play with it. But if it isn't, so like my Dragon Hunter castle, I took back a lot of my guys and the dragon I built.
So you just play with them separately from the castle?
I'm going to play with them all together when the castle's done. Right.
But if, like, say, I saw that you put the guys together on this before we had the car built. That's because you like to play with the guys.
No, that's how it goes. It's guys, then the thing.
Oh, so the order of things is they put the people together first?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh. Because when you're all done, we're going to have this really cool car, and then there's going to be people. Will they be sitting in the car driving it?
Only one.
Only one? Oh.
Because the car's meant for one person.
So you can have different ones drive it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, I learned a lot trying to make those teeny pieces fit. What I've learned is I have to be so patient. I have to just do one thing at a time.
Oh, and do you want to hear another tip?
Yeah.
If you're starting to do junior Legos, if you're starting tiny Legos, there's these sets that have a few big pieces, then all small.
Oh, because you're sort of learning how to shift from the big pieces to the little pieces?
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you started?
Ryan was luckier because when I was doing Legos, I was only doing Duplos until on my 5-year birthday. That was when I was getting all the tinies.
Oh, okay. I think you started doing the tiny ones a little earlier than most kids.
I did them at age 5.
Wow. I think it says like 6 and up on the bag.
Yeah.
Maybe even older.
And my dad has a Fenway Park, which he is not even close to finishing.
Oh, he's making a Lego Fenway Park?
Yeah.
Ooh. I can't wait to see that. Do you help him with it?
That Lego is a lot too big for me.
That's right.
That's probably like age Pa.
Yeah, I don't know. Age Pa, you have to go. See, when you get it too old, I will have to go back to the Duplos because you get you're not as good when you get really, really, really old. But I don't know. I enjoy it. It's fun working on them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go have breakfast.
Yeah.
As I said at the outset, I went back and listened to these conversations to figure out what I could learn about learning by my conversations, and I came up with 12 points that I'd like to share with you. The first is that it's easier to learn things when learning is fun, and that's what I got when Ryan said the best thing about the programming was when he figured out he could make cool animal noises when you were programming the robot. Second, it's best to learn by getting answers to your own questions, and this is like when, I'm asking Ryan, he's sort of participating on my terms, but then he had a question like, am I on the microphone, and are people talking on those sound waves? When he had a question himself, that was the real learning opportunity. So I think this is sort of whether I'm the teacher or the student, the questions that come from the student that are meaningful to the student are the places where the learning can happen. Repetition as a key to learning. I saw that day on the beach with Ryan where he just kept running and running. He'd run a full tilt down this fairly steep slope into the tidal pool, and he wouldn't just jump. He would run so fast that he actually did trip on the water and fall in, and if his hat went off, that was even better. And so he was doing it over and over. Because he enjoyed it so much, he just wanted to do it again. But in talking to him, I realized he was trying to figure out, well, what's the best place? How far up the beach do I have to start to get going fast enough so that my hat falls off and I land in the pool, which is what I was after. And he did it until he was absolutely chattering with cold, and I had to wrap him up in a big towel to bring him up to the cottage. So repetition was clearly key to his learning process. 4, learning happens when I look at something carefully, and that's, again, Ryan looking at the sound waves on the computer and then checking out what he saw with me. 5, learning happens when the student is listened to, the way Mike and Rue do every day with their amazing sons. And when the student listens, there's learning. But when the teacher really listens to the student, those are the moments that I think the best things happen. 6, it helps to learn if learning will help me to do new things, like drive a truck in Jake's case. There's a purpose for learning because it's going to make your life better. 7, when in doubt, press all the buttons. That was something Jake suggested. And it's try everything and see what works. He gets in the Tesla, and there's video games that Elon Musk has programmed into the Tesla. He does. He just presses all the buttons. He's not afraid of pressing the wrong button. He just presses all of them because that's how he's going to figure out how things work. I mean, there's a few I keep him away from, like how to start the car. 8, a challenge is good for learning. And this was, again, from Jake. We all think challenge is good, but he's saying that the reason it's better to do a challenging Lego game is it takes longer. And if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're enjoying the learning, the bigger the challenge, the longer it takes, and therefore the more enjoyment you have. That was kind of cool. 9, when building a Lego model, bring a Lego remover because you will make mistakes, and it's just good to be ready for them. 10, if you stick with a creative project, you will see a change from the beginning. That idea that the first bag of pieces of the Lego, by the time you finish it, it doesn't really look like much, And when I start out the podcast and I'm sort of, it's taking shape, but I think, is this really going to work? It's like the first bag of the Lego pieces, and you just have to keep going because by the time you get to the last bag and you've got the podcast is up and you're just about to hit published in Libsyn, you think, yeah, that's a good episode. I like that episode. So you just have to keep going all the way to the last bag, and that's when the wheels usually go on, as he said. 11, don't worry if you lose a piece. Your ninja car doesn't have to be perfect. That surprised me because I panicked when I thought I'd lost one of these little pieces. And Jake is saying, oh, you'll lose a piece once in a while. You just build around it, no problem. And then to 12, to rest and pace yourself through a creative project. It's good to finish one bag before starting the next. And this is also, I think, a smart strategy for a grandparent who's has learned how much joy and passion goes into the Lego. I'm going to start being able to say, okay, let's start working on this. Do you think we'll be able to get through bag 4 before lunch? Because if so, let's do this. I think that'll work. So just get to be a little more skillful in managing Lego time and everything else. As you can see, I got a lot out of these 3 days with my grandsons, and we're looking forward to them returning maybe in a week or two to spend some more time up here at Ocean Park. Before I sign off, I want to share an email that I received from Stephen Gold. He wrote, "Hi, Len. Thanks for finding Radio Garden on Financial Times and sharing it with your listeners in TKC 619. It is a fun app. Now, on top of the hundreds of unread books and unseen streaming content, I will spend many blissful hours sliding my finger around the globe. In doing so randomly on my first try, I landed in Keene, New Hampshire, and was listening to a conversation between the dispatcher and a police officer. I then landed on New Minas, Nova Scotia. I looked up the small village and read its interesting history, included that it was founded by Acadians in 1682 who were expelled during the Bay of Fundy campaign of the Acadian expulsion of 1755 by the British, commanded by Robert Monckton, a colonial administrator in North America. They were also expelled from other maritime provinces and part of Maine. I excitedly reported this to my wife, since we had stayed in a delightful B&B in the village of Moncton Combe near Bath in the UK some years ago, and often reminisce about it. I told her I bet that it was named after the British officer despite the different spelling. Alas, the circle could not be closed. Further research revealed that the name referenced monks in an abbey. So I cannot say, as Paul Harvey did, now you know the rest of the story. That's a great example of the serendipitous wanderings that you can do with this Radio Garden app that I talked about last week, where you're presented with a globe and you spin the globe and there are all these lights on it, and every one of them is a radio station broadcasting in real time, and you can just listen to the voices of radio all over the world. Steve continues, as to the Amazon part, I called Kindle customer service today about my wife's malfunctioning Fire HD8. A recording talked about the regional COVID-19 regulations, which resulted in slower response times, but also said that they were unable to answer the call at this time. I'm curious as to whether the recording is based on the location of the caller, since they refer to regional regulations. You might want to try and call and see if you get the same message in Maine. Take care, Steve. Well, as it happens, Darlene received something today that had a problem, and so she called Amazon, and sure enough, she got that same recording saying that we're just not answering the phone. That's a remarkable concession to make to the COVID investment that Bezos and Amazon are making this quarter, because, customer obsession has always been related to the fantastic service that we get when we call customer service. You never wait more than a few seconds, and you get people that can answer every question. Well, they've determined that it's more important to have things like the device that I told you about, the social distancing tool, and work on those things than it is to answer the phone. I don't really get. Is everybody that was answering the phone now designing social distancing tools? I don't quite understand the relationship between the emphasis on the social distancing and handling the COVID and not having people answer the phone. But maybe it's just the logistics of people in call centers. I suspect that's probably it. But anyway, still a big change in that area. Next week, we're going to speak with Jaimal Yogis. He was first on the show 7 years ago talking about a book that had a big impact on me titled The Fear Project, and he was talking about fear as a surfer and then also fear of commitments and relationships. And after that book came out, I think either at the end of that book or just afterward, he got married, and I follow him on Facebook. I think he's got 3 kids. There's 3 gorgeous, wonderful kids. So he has overcome a lot of fear, and I'm looking forward to talk to him about that. The reason for talking with him is he has a new book out that's available for pre-order. It's a children's book titled Mop Rides the Waves of Life, a story of mindfulness and surfing, and it's going to be released on January 30th, illustrated by Matt Allen. I pre-ordered the Kindle version for $9.99, and I look forward to reading it via Zoom, probably for Ryan and Jake when they're down in Cambridge and we're up here in Maine. So that'll be fun to talk to Jaimal again. There we have it. I can still see the ocean. It's still light. It's going to be light way later than this in Fairbanks, Alaska, where my friend Kes is, coming up against the longest day of the year up there. And I like these long days. It's pretty nice up here, even when it's so hot up on the second floor. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye.